And now, as promised, part two of my conversation with Gary Hawkins of the Center for Advancing Retail and Technology about why the Kroger-Albertsons merger is nothing so much as the total transformation of the traditional retail food industry. Enjoy. Number three, you think the three companies are going to transform the shopping experience in a way that's going to clearly lay down a challenge for virtually everybody else.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think there's a few key areas I'd point to. One that to me is, everybody should have gotten onto this by now, but simply having that seamless, cohesive experience across devices and channels, right? If you're an Amazon customer, you can start something on your phone, put that down, pick up your tablet, put that down, pick up your desktop, and it looks the same, it acts the same, your data is real time across all that. Way too many retailers today are still plugging together disparate solutions. They've got their mobile app from one company, their website from somebody else, e-commerce from another provider, and it's a very disjointed, not real-time, disconnected experience. Those are just table stakes today. You go beyond that, you start looking at like computer vision platforms like Amazon's Just Walk Out technology. Some of these other things I think are truly game changing.
Yeah. You also one of the things you talk about in your article, your column, was the whole notion of micro fulfillment centers, that you seem to think that that's going to be, that more retailers need to be investing in that side of the business because it will change the customer experience in so many ways.
It's going to change the experience. It's going to change that brick and mortar store format and layout. I think, different retailers have talked for years about, the hybrid store, where in the grocery sector, the front half of the store is just all fresh foods, all the interesting stuff. The back half of the store behind the wall is that automated fulfillment center where all the packaged stuff is. I think we will see something like that be coming into the marketplace here as this technology grows.
It is interesting when you think about it that first of all, so you have, Kroger, which, one would assume that if the deal with Albertsons is approved, the ability to expand its kind of hub and spoke model so we can reach people even in markets, and there are going to be a lot fewer of them, markets where it doesn't have stores, gives it an enormous, an extensive footprint. You've got Walmart, which is what, they say there's a Walmart store within, 10 miles of 90% of the population, is whatever the number is. It's everywhere. And then you've got Amazon, which doesn't obviously have as many physical stores, but has an enormous reach in terms of e-commerce, is expanding its physical reach. And those gray vans are ubiquitous, right? Going down, all of our streets, not just once or twice a day, but sometimes 10 or 12 times a day.
Yeah.
That is, when you think about just the three of those companies, the ability to take all of that infrastructure and transform, I'm not even thinking about the customer, even how the customer thinks about shopping. It's sort of mind-blowing if they do it right. Sometimes I think we give them a little bit too much credit, that they're not quite as organized, and they're not quite as focused on the big picture as people like maybe you and me sometimes think. But the opportunity is enormous.
Yes.
Okay, that was a long question and a short answer. Number four, and I think this also ties into it, is the whole notion of food and healthcare. That there's a convergence there that all three companies are going to be really built to take advantage of in a way that a lot of companies are not.
Yes. So there is more and more going on around this food and health convergence area. And again, this is something I've been talking about, writing about for the last several years, but it's accelerating. Amazon certainly has expressed publicly many times their desire to help transform healthcare. they're in the pharmacy business now, they're in the food business, they're beginning to see and understand, connect those dots. Walmart is obviously in the pharmacy business, putting in clinics into a growing number of stores, understanding that connection. But it's Kroger that I'm really watching closely. Kroger several years ago rolled out its Opt-Up app, and I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's basically their health and wellness app that works across all their banners across the country. That app providing a general nutrition score for every food product. And I can see, an aggregated score over time, see if I'm improving or, buying worse stuff, right, to eat. But where Kroger is going with that is tying those scores to specific health conditions. So for this product, if I'm diabetic, it's got this score. If I've got kidney disease, it's got that score, and so on. So beginning to really personalize the food guidance to the individual's health condition, but they are then tying that to a view of the pharmacy, knowing what prescription drugs you're on, and are there, good interactions, bad interactions with certain food products, tying that to the clinics they're putting in a growing number of stores, and conversations they have going on with the broader healthcare market, health insurance companies, healthcare providers. All this is beginning to coalesce.
Yeah, I do think we're kind of in early days, though. I mean, for example, you even mentioned PillPack in your column, and yet I don't think Amazon has taken advantage of PillPack to the degree that I would have ever expected. I think they've been working on so many different things in healthcare. It's like they bought PillPack, they got it, but it doesn't seem like they've made any concerted effort to grow the marketplace. Some of that I just based on the fact that I know how old I am, and you would think that I would be the center of the target for them, and they've never marketed PillPack to me,
Yep.
And I don't know what your situation is, but that always kind of surprises me. I also think that, and to go back to what I was saying before, in some ways, I think we sometimes give these companies a little bit too much credit. And when you think about it, and I can't remember the name of the company, but I can remember, I'm going to say 10 or 12 years ago, going to a Lunds and Byerly store where they were selling DNA testing kits, right?
Yep.
Not that dissimilar from what exists out there right now with 23andMe, but it was way before that. And the idea was you could test your DNA, and if you wanted, you could bring the results back to them and talk to both their nutritionist and their pharmacist, and they could lay and say, okay, my DNA tells me I am susceptible to this. So let's suppose you're susceptible to cancer. They would say, okay, you need to consume products that have lycopene in them. That's tomatoes. All right. Okay. So one of the things, so they could start to help you design that diet. That existed, that capability existed 10, 15 years ago, and it never really happened. And it still hasn't really happened to any great degree that I'm aware of. Now, maybe it's just because consumers are resistant. I don't know. But I think that sometimes I do think, and disagree with me, please, if you think I'm wrong. I do think sometimes these companies have all these building blocks, but don't necessarily know how to put them together, or don't put them together for some reason.
So I agree with you around like Amazon and PillPack, not doing with that what they could have or what the potential has been maybe. But I will say, I think the conversations I've had, my knowledge of what's going on sort of in the background, I think Kroger's got a very good idea where they're going with this space and what's going to happen here. I think some of the other things that are accelerating the space are, big data, more and more attributes and ingredient information available around every food product. Again, AI capabilities in understanding what foods are most appropriate for what health conditions and so on. So I think we are going to see more and more happen here. The other thing, and to just back up out of the weeds a little bit, that I tried to convey in that article is that I think the Kroger-Albertsons acquisition is poised to really accelerate innovation across this whole space, right? Because when you look at Amazon, you look at Walmart, you look at Kroger, and you look at everything that's written about them, there's not an awful lot written about, oh, gee, they're going to be able to lower the price of, pasta by this much or milk by that much. There's some stuff around supply chain, but it's really focused around how they are leveraging technology to transform and reinvent how we shop. That's what I think where the competition is going to be focused. And I think it's that represents the risk to everybody else.
Well, that's a really good point, because what happens is, they say if you want to improve your tennis game, you got to play with somebody better than you, right? Because you play better.
Yeah.
And in this case, you're going to have three companies, all of whom are really good tennis players. And so in order to maintain their competitive advantages, they're going to have to innovate faster, harder, and more intelligently, which does create really competitive problems for anybody who's not innovating at that level. So last question, you bring this up in your piece, which is that it's incumbent on everybody else to figure out how to innovate, to have an innovation strategy, to create innovation cultures. So very quickly, what is your advice to companies trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to play tennis at that level, or at least be able to play tennis well enough to keep me in the game?
Yeah. So, and great question. I still see too many retailers, even, multi-billion-dollar year retailers, being far too reactive and not enough planning. So, in my mind, I think the first thing retailers need to do, again, of any size, is really understand their marketplace landscape, their the competitive landscape, and so on. And it's complicated today, right? Not only, gee, what are Amazon, Kroger, Walmart doing, but what are these online marketplaces like Instacart and DoorDash doing? There's competition everywhere today. So it's understanding that whole environment, and then it's coming back saying, okay, as a retailer, what makes me different? Why do shoppers want to shop with me? How can I use technology? How can I use innovation to help solidify that position and move me forward? And then it's, putting together, what does that roadmap look like? And as we continue out this exponential growth curve of technology, things are moving faster every day. It's how do I develop a process to keep myself aware of what new capabilities are out there coming into the market? What do they mean? How can I use them? How do I evaluate them? What do I want to actually, test and deploy?
The one question, as you talk about that, I sit here and I think to myself, the one question, and and you would probably know the answer to this question better than I do, because I don't know the answer to it. How many retailers actually create entities within themselves that ever ask the question, okay, if we were going to invent the business of selling food from scratch, what would we do? How many, would we do it the way we do it, or would we do something else? And it seems, I wonder how many actually ask that question.
Not enough of them, Kevin.
Yeah.
Not enough of them. And it's a hard question to ask, because if you
and harder to answer.
Oh yeah, but if you were truly to take a clean sheet of paper and say, how am I going to move food or get food from the field or that plant to that consumer, how would I do that?
Right.
It may not look like what food retailing looks like today. I think probably the closest companies to asking that question, I think an Amazon asks that internally, and probably a Walmart, Kroger, maybe more than anyone, has the freedom to think about doing that.
That's resources, right? That's,
It really is. It's resources.
but also mindset, which is probably a pretty good place where we would end this. I will put a link to your LinkedIn piece on the site so people can read it. I thank you for your time, and we'll do it again down the road if that's okay with you.
All right. Look forward to it.
That's
Always
good.
great
Take
to
care.
talk.
See ya.
All right.